This is All the Things with Michelle Wolfe.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of All the Things. So I want to jump into it. I have Beth Montgomery here with me. And Beth,
Hi.
I would introduce you as and I say these things like from my heart, like a death doula,
Mm-hmm.
a medium,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and an aura reader.
Mm-hmm.
How does that ring for you?
Yeah, I'm a Jill of all things. I'm also a CPR instructor, and um, I've lived many different lifetimes.
hmm
Yeah.
And so when we hear the term death doula, because I feel like that's the one that people are like, what is that? Can
Mm.
you explain what that is?
Yeah. So a death doula is a professional, non-medical person who is compassionate and offers services spanning holistic, spiritual, physical, all areas of death and dying and grief. We offer support, we offer guidance, conversations that are much needed, and we're like the emotional support dog.
Yeah, yeah, you kind of like hold people's hand through the process.
Yeah.
And actually kind of literally, right? Like you are somebody that can, I think to be a death doula, because it's such a, we think of life and death as I think of life and death as this ongoing rebirth for death destruction cycle.
Mm.
So it's a sort of transformation, right? From one state of being to another, and we all have different beliefs around that, and so it takes a lot of capacity to hold space. um
It can be a really complicated time of life.
mhm.
The
Yeah.
biggest transition that we could ever go through is at the end of life. The biggest transition we witness as those here on this plane of the earth is to witness someone that we love and deeply care about transition to wherever we go after this life. And so it
Right.
can be really complicated. And, I've sat with people who are just grateful to have someone who doesn't have the attachment of family or friend or story, that they just have a neutral third party person there who's just a compassionate human being
hmm
and wants to be there and has the space and ability to sit.
Do you also do you offer advice or cover things that they might, because there's things that people need to prepare for. Are you like a guide in that way, or do you have like resources for that?
Absolutely. So there's three main areas that I tend to focus on. The first one being you're still here. We're here, we're capable, we're able-bodied, we are of sound mind, and this is the perfect time to have a conversation about end of life.
hmm
So, we talk about advanced directives, we talk about who your healthcare proxy is. We get the conversation started. An advanced directive is the biggest myth is that it's a legal document. It is a legal document. However, you don't need an attorney to have that document in hand. You can have a conversation with someone like a death doula, or you can have someone in a hospital, or you can just Google what is an advanced directive, and
hmm
you'll have a form that just magically appears. And same with healthcare proxy. And a healthcare proxy is 1 to 2 people that you appoint as your person of, hey, if something happens to me where I can't speak on my own terms, these are my wishes, and I need you to voice my wishes to the doctors and the care
hmm
team so that they know what to do, because making that decision is a really it's a big step.
Yeah.
So we just have the conversation and um, I guide them to an attorney, an elder law attorney, or the funeral home, or whoever they
Yeah. You just sort of help them navigate the process. Because I know that can be overwhelming and part of just the overwhelm of all the things that are happening at these stages of life. And it's a lot to consider if you're trying to be mindful about planning and
Yeah, and
things.
it's not all like bad planning. I think
No.
we get so like we get so uptight, like, in a heart space where it's like, "Oh, no, okay," like, if I'm unconscious and they put me on life support, that type of thing, but when I say planning, it's also, what do you want your end of life to look like? What do you
Mhm.
want your death nest to look like? Do you want your loved ones to wash and care for your body? How quickly do you want them to take your body to the next location? How do you want to plan your funeral or celebration of life? Like, for instance, I was talking to a funeral director the other day and I go, yeah, for my end of life celebration or funeral, whatever people want to call it, um, I want you to play a voiceover of me saying, I'm late because I'm literally late to everything. And I keep saying the big joke is I'll be late to my own funeral. So I would like that to be a wish fulfilled for my end of life that they bring me in like
That's
5
fun.
minutes late, so you can plan things like that.
Mhm.
Um, or like how you wish to be remembered. What's your legacy
And I
like?
think that that's actually such a good process because I think, when I mean, even as part of working through, I always sort of relate things back to trauma, but we can learn so much about ourselves and our nervous system and how we change through healing trauma. And so, you know, preparing yourself can be a good thing. Like you can kind of feel a sense of control around that, around something that really we don't have any control over, right? Or
Exactly.
very little. And it actually helps, I think, to right, because like it's all up here sometimes. And if we start like sort of planning it out step by step, it's like, okay,
Mm.
this is doable. This is a thing. And it's not so big anymore.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be so stuffy either.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, I mean, I think it's nice too if you have people in your life that you can go through that process with, because then that becomes part of your legacy, your memories that you build in the time that you still have.
That is very true. And life is all about connection, right?
Yes. Yes. That's something that I'm so passionate about. And I think that's one of the things that is like a common thread in my work is like our interconnectedness. Like I'm always stressing that. Like we truly need each other.
Mhm. Yes.
um, from the moment we're born until the day we die, really,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes. Biggest life lesson on any deathbed that I've heard the most is learn how to ask help because at the end of life, you will need to
Mm,
surrender to that, like,
yes,
um, needing to ask for help.
that's a big one, I think. That we try to be like so strong, for everyone. And then we just don't realize like how we get ourselves so worn down and it's just like I've gotten so much better about that. Like I have I've cultivated such a good support system. And
Mm,
we feed each other, right? Like I don't feel like anybody because sometimes we are a little burdensome. Like sometimes I might have a lot going on or you might have a lot going on and like as your friend I'm agreeing to carry that with you sometimes, right? So
that
it's
is very true.
yeah.
The interesting thing is about the United States countries that are out there, they have a village that your children are also my children. Your neighbor, you're also like family. We take care of each other. And it's so interesting to me that we can be neighbors with someone and not even know them,
Hmm.
you know,
Yes.
because we are raised in a society where it is more important to be self-reliant and self-sufficient and do the things and be independent and also that that is a trauma response, you know?
Yes. I remember saying that when we lived in a neighborhood with small children at one point. I was like, it's weird to me that we don't know our neighbors, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. And you do sort of feel this sense of like that's their property, that's their yard. It's not always that way, but some people do give off that like they want their privacy and they really don't want anybody, you know. Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
wasn't like that when I was growing up. I mean, I don't know, we were probably bad kids, but we just traversed everybody's yards.
Yeah. Well, but the social norms weren't as important when you're 5 years old, 10 years old, running through the yards, you know?
Yeah.
It's to play. The whole world is our playground.
But there was more of a sense of I want to, yeah, community
Yeah.
in like it was not unheard of that, someone would come out of their front door and be like, "Hey, don't take my," because I was famous for grabbing flowers from people's flower beds. Like so they would, come out and like reprimand you, not in like a mean way, but just we're all parented by the people in our neighborhood. It was a little bit different. It's
It
not
was
like that now. It is much more individualized, and there might be consequences for you saying something. So we have to be much more thoughtful, which isn't a bad thing, but everything has extremes.
it does. It is true. And there's a lot of true crime podcasts out there that have taught us a
Hmm.
lot of things about a lot of different ways that people have lived their lives, and so I think
Absolutely.
the hesitancy too of, "Do I really know these people?"
Yes.
Be
Yes.
can be which is, again, why I feel so honored to be in this space, in the most vulnerable time that someone can be in,
Hmm.
that they invite me into their homes and say, "Please witness me through this biggest transition." A stranger.
And then, so because of your mediumship abilities, do you then, I imagine, like you then help people with that transition, to be able to help them make connections?
Hmm. Actually, they make the connections themselves. There's this thing
Mm,
called visioning that happens a lot during end of life to most people. That visioning, they get to see people who have passed on. Sometimes they are remote viewing. And there's a
mhm,
case that I have a friend who lived thousands of miles away from their mother as she was, on her last leg of her journey. And she said she talked to her mother when she had her rally. And a rally is when you get all this, the person who's dying gets all this energy and starts talking or sits up or even gets up, and was sharing with her how what she was wearing, how she was at, like where she was at, what she was doing. And she was like, "How did you know that?"
mhm.
She said, "Well, I saw it in my mind. I saw it in my mind's eye." And she was like, she got me to the T to what I was wearing, what I was doing, how I was in the world. And with visioning, people, it's a phenomenon. The doctors even put it in their materials. Um, Sometimes people raise their hands up like they're trying to reach someone.
Mhm.
So they go through that process automatically. The veil is very thin. So interestingly enough, I've never shared my mediumship abilities with the people as they're going through their process. But I do see things.
Well, yeah, and I was the more thinking about like for the family who is left now after, their family has like passed over,
Uh,
in helping them to connect. I don't know. I mean, I just imagine that some people might have an interest in wanting that.
there are some people that do. There
Or
are.
like I'll feel like they'll want confirmation a lot of times. Like they already have that connection. They just want to hear it. Like sometimes they just want to know, is that butterfly that just landed over there a symbol, a message for me? And
Mm.
so,
So if you're listening to this, if you're having an inkling of this, is that cardinal for me? Is that my mom? Is that my grandmother? Is that whoever it is? Trust that inclination, because 10 times out of 10, your intuition is spot on. And while I can give and offer confirmation, what surprises me the most is that you are 100% correct in your thinking, that this is your person saying hello.
I love that. That's very empowering.
Yeah.
Trust your knowing. Yes,
Mhm.
that's a great answer.
Trust your intuition, yeah. But I get it, grief does funny things to us. Our humanness does really funny things to us, and sometimes we get really too close to the thing, right? I am a firm believer that every reader needs a reader, every therapist needs a therapist, every
Mhm.
person needs a person to kind of give a third eye view, a third person view, a not connected or story behind it, because we can get in our own heads and be our worst enemies.
Oh my gosh, so important to have that other perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
I sort of think about us in terms of like a prism, like we can't see all the sides of us. And so it's important to have other interpretations, right? Because we're all offering our own sort of interpretation or our own reflection that is coming from us.
Mm,
For you to be able to bounce off of that, you know,
yeah.
and see like how does that feel to me? Or I didn't think of it like that.
Mm,
That's what we do for each other.
exactly. Yeah. And there's no story attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not thinking of this, that, or the other thing. I'm just sharing what is intuitively coming through. Same thing for another person giving their perspective.
And I think it just comes through, it's probably why I didn't feel like we needed to have a conversation before we were going to do this because you just have a presence. I could feel that when I talk to you. It's very grounding and warm, and
Mm,
it feels easy to talk to you. So I think it's, people who have that deep capacity to hold space. It's very heartening for me to, this is not easy work. Um, it actually, it's a great service.
thank you.
Hmm.
And likewise to you too. It's not easy doing a podcast, trying to keep keep the conversation going sometimes. And you've done a really wonderful job. I feel
Oh,
very
thanks.
honored to be here today. Yeah.
It's just very natural for me too, because I just have a general interest in life. And when I was trying to think of like, well, what am I going to call this and what does it have to be? What am I going to talk about? I want to talk about all the things because they're all related. Energy, like we didn't even talk about auras. And I have experience with that too. I
Yeah.
read auras in I don't know what your experience is with that, but I feel like you can see them more clearly when you're in a pool, like underwater. They're brighter.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
the outline is more like a neon. Like it's well, you have to try it. Don't take my word for it.
It's like refractors. Yeah. Well, that
Yeah,
makes sense
something
to me.
happened.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And water is very cleansing too, so that makes a lot of sense to me.
And water is such a great conductor,
It sure is.
so it's or an amplifier. So yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Oh my
Somebody
goodness.
passed that on to me and I was like, oh, and I tried it and I was like, yeah, okay. I'll be curious to see what your experience is with that.
Yeah.
Um, but that we have so many elements at play in our reality.
Mhm.
So, and I'm sure that all of that comes into play to support you in the things that you're doing. But
Yes.
do you still read auras? Like, is that something? Because I come across your TikToks.
Yeah, I just recently had a video go get crazy amounts of numbers, and I had an uptick in my aura readings, and it's just so interesting to me how people can experience their own energy and they
Mhm.
can read auras. And yet again, it's like, I'm too close to it. Can you just read my aura? Or
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
when I read auras, it's not so much as like you're one color, you're this color, you're that color. And the colors are so like we're complex, multidimensional, multifaceted human beings. So the way that I see them, and this is unique to me, and everybody reads energies differently, but I see different layers. So I usually read the internal and then the external, like how people are reading my energy versus what's actually really going on underneath
Mhm.
those layers. But our layers go out to the cosmos. We're that powerful. And so when I share the aura colors, I'm not an artist, so I don't know all the names of all the colors. So I asked Spirit to show me in the spectrum of the chakra system, the seven basic chakra system,
Mhm.
because that just feels easy,
Yeah.
because to keep it really easy. But and then also I asked Spirit to show me the left hand side versus the right hand side, and left hand side is what's going on with your heart space, your spirit? Where's your passion? Like where do you see yourself going, or where are you on the path of life? Versus the right-hand side, which is the humanness and like the way that we think and the way that our human body is like our meat.
Mhm.
And so that's that's basically where we spend most of the time is like the inner layers. And 10 times out of 10, I'm always hearing, "You're spot on. You like, you just told me, you know, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
confirmation," you know? It's
Um, when I used to do Reiki, for me, it comes through like and it can be, very different. Like sometimes it is an outline for
Mhm,
someone, but sometimes it is more like in my third eye. Like I'll just see the colors, you know. But also, I experience people to be very dynamic. Like we're sort of always, we're fluid, like we're always changing. So we might have like a general sense or a color that's a theme color,
mhm.
but it can change. At least that's how I experience
Yeah.
it.
Same.
Um,
Yeah, same.
and that none are really good or bad. And I've heard you talk about this in your videos, which is why I resonate with a lot of what you say. But like, it's really just about energy and vibration. It's not really like a judging thing.
No, no judgment at all. It's the moral judgment call of, like, good versus bad, and what's
Hmm.
good for one person is bad for the other, right? Because we're all unique and very different. And the thing about good versus bad, and it's not good or bad, it's just then we can change and grow on our healing journey. So
Exactly.
I often say, um, I try to keep my readings very positive, very much on the positive force. Because what I notice is when we hear something quote unquote negative,
Oh, yes.
we then ruminate on it. And
It's
it's
our psychology. It's
yes.
really it's been shown that it's easier for us to recall negative things because we focus on it. Because
Hmm.
it's something that we want to then fix or problem solve. So I
Yeah.
get it
It
because
puts,
like we are problem solving machines and that's awesome. But like it takes work sometimes to hold on to the positive stuff.
mhm. it
So,
it is
and
very
really
true.
getting that information and I think you deliver it in a very empowering way.
I,
Um,
I sure
so
try to. The thing is the thing of the whole thing, the thing. How many times can I say thing? The the most important thing to remember is go back to your light.
hmm.
Go back to your power. Go back to, you know, I try to empower people in the fact of you are so much more powerful than you give yourself credit. And if you could see yourself through my eyes, you would never doubt yourself. And that is very true. I say that a lot and I mean it a lot
Hmm.
because if you would to see your true power, it would just you'd be like, "Oh, that little thing, pff, no big deal," right? And so when we focus on our power, our quote unquote positive attributes, then we can empower ourselves and, growing this or growing that. So, you know, the human mind is such a complicated
It
playground,
is. We
monkey
are
bar.
very complex. We're very simple creatures in the things that we our bodies and what we need, and yet we're so complex. We really are. And that's like I'm always seeing those sort of dichotomies in nature and in our nature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. That even something like death, which is an end to one cycle, is a beginning experience in another way.
Mm.
Um, so
It's a
well,
rebirth.
thank you for joining me today. And I guess when I share this, I will share this with all the places that people can find you. My favorite place to find you has been on TikTok, and I enjoy your videos.
Aw, thank you. I enjoy your videos too. So if you haven't
Oh,
already
thanks.
followed, follow Michelle and um but TikTok is going away. Did you hear about this ban? We gotta
I
like
do, but I'm in denial about it until it actually happens, but I'm enjoying it while it's here, and it's been a source of connection for me ever since COVID started.
same.
Yeah, like I just saw how innovative people became, and I was like, yes, that is what we can do, during a time like this.
Yeah.
Which, that's like a whole other conversation that I could be like, there's a reason why it's going away. They don't want us to be connected like we are, but I've been really
Yeah.
enjoying it. And it just allows me to feed myself with, I won't say positive, but like it feeds me in the ways that I need that are sustainable instead of being very draining.
Yes.
So,
It is the one of the most unique algorithm technologies that are out there, and I think that's why it speaks to so many people.
hmm
So if TikTok goes away, we do have an Instagram and a Faceland and a YouTubeville
yes, we have lots of
and a
channels.
websites.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I know it's not the same.
Well,
However, I do
they're
think
not, dissimilar in their ways. We've got reels and, shorts and whatever. So,
yeah. And I tried Clapper and Clapper was not it. It's just not it. But we will find each other and, connect, it's so important, that
it's
connection.
been really nice connecting with you. Yeah. I know
Likewise.
we don't talk a whole lot, but like I enjoy having you in my feed.
Likewise.
So,
Likewise.
all right. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining me for this episode of All the Things.